Everyone thinks Qiyana is hard because of her combos, but the truth is, learning the combos is the easy part. Almost anyone can memorize a rotation and get a few kills. The real skill is knowing when you're actually allowed to go in. One good entry lets you delete a carry and take over the fight. One forced entry gets you crowd controlled and killed before your combo is even finished. The best Qiyana players can look passive, right until they end the fight in seconds. So in this guide, I'm going to show you how to play Qiyana properly, from elements and combos, to builds and real in-game decision making. So you don't just know how to kill someone, you know when to go in and when to stay out. Let's get into it. Let's quickly lock in what Qiyana brings to the table. Qiyana can delete squishy targets extremely quickly by combining her abilities, elements, and empowered basic auto attacks into one fast burst combo. Her W gives her frequent dashes around terrain, while her E lets her quickly close the distance and stick to priority targets. River Q and her ultimate give Qiyana powerful crowd control, allowing her to catch individual targets or disrupt an entire teamfight. Brush invisibility, River Q roots, constant dashes, and creative ultimate angles give Qiyana several ways to outplay her opponents. Her mobility, burst damage, and reliable setup make Qiyana a dangerous roamer who can quickly move around the map and punish vulnerable targets. But that power comes with real risks, so let's break down her weaknesses. Qiyana can be killed extremely quickly if she gets caught out of position, wastes her mobility, or dives into a fight at the wrong time. Most of Qiyana's pressure depends on landing her Q and finding the right angle for her ultimate, especially when she cannot use E to help guarantee her follow-up. Qiyana has a vulnerable first few levels and limited pressure before unlocking her full basic ability rotation and gaining enough damage to threaten opponents. To get consistent results, Qiyana needs strong muscle memory, fast combos, creative ultimate angles, and a good understanding of how to use nearby terrain. Qiyana excels at bursting squishy targets, but struggles against champions who stack health and armor, especially once her initial combo has been used. Those are Qiyana's biggest strengths and weaknesses overall. Before we go over each ability, Qiyana has one system you need to understand. Her W grabs one of three elements, river, brush, or terrain. Then her Q spends the element for a different effect. So just remember W grabs, Q spends. So let's start with W. Qiyana's W is what sets up her entire kit. When you use W, Qiyana dashes a short distance and grabs an element nearby. You can use this dash to jump over small walls, dodge abilities, chase enemies, or escape danger. After grabbing an element, Qiyana gains bonus attack speed, extra auto range, bonus damage, and movement speed while near the same element. This bonus damage makes it easy to last hit minions and increases your damage during trades. It even works on towers. Get to lane faster by grabbing terrain and staying close to walls. And pick up river when you're looking to roam. Most importantly, W resets your Q, letting Qiyana chain elements together for stronger trades and combos. Qiyana's passive is simple, but it can be the difference between killing someone and leaving them on 1 HP. The first time Qiyana damages an enemy with an attack or ability, she deals bonus damage. The mistake is wasting that damage by using the same element twice. When Qiyana changes elements with W, she can refresh her passive and get that bonus damage again. So if you hit someone, grab a different element, then hit them again, you can get 2 passive procs in one fight. Royal Privilege works separately on each target, so you can proc it on multiple enemies in the same fight. It also works on minions, which makes it useful for last hitting and clearing waves. Qiyana's Q is where her elements actually become dangerous. Without an element, Qiyana slashes forward and deals damage, but this is the weakest version of the ability. Once you grab an element with W, your Q becomes empowered, gains more range, and changes based on what you're holding. Brush gives you invisibility, River gives you crowd control, and Rock gives you execute damage. Because Q is range and hits in an area, it becomes your safest way to CS and wave clear. And when enemies are grouped up, take advantage of the AoE to hit multiple targets with the same Q. Brush Q is the ability that makes Qiyana feel impossible to fight. When you use Brush Q, Qiyana creates a grass trail that makes her invisible and gives her movement speed while she stays inside. This lets you dodge skill shots, avoid auto attacks, stall for cooldowns, chase enemies, escape danger, or buy time for your team to arrive. You can use W while invisible without revealing yourself. But if you attack or use a damaging ability, you will break the invisibility. River Q is how Qiyana turns one hit into a guaranteed follow-up. When you use River Q, enemies hit are rooted, then slowed afterwards. This makes it one of the best Qs for starting fights, setting up ganks, catching mobile champions, and making the rest of your damage easier to land. If your jungler is nearby, River Q is usually the element you want ready. One good root can give your team enough time to collapse, land their own abilities, and turn an opening into a kill. Rock Q is the most lethal version of Qiyana's Q, but only if you use it at the right time. This Q deals bonus damage to enemies below half health, so you usually want to save it as your finisher. Use your other abilities first, get them low, then finish the combo with Rock Q. It also works on minions and monsters, which makes it useful for wave clear, jungle camps, and securing objectives. And because walls are everywhere, Rock is usually the easiest element to grab when you want to activate your W movement speed around the map. Qiyana's E is her simplest ability, but spacing is what players get wrong. When you use E, Qiyana dashes a fixed distance through an enemy target and deals damage. That's it. But because the dash has a fixed distance, using it at close range can send you behind the enemy, while using it from max range usually keeps you in front. You can also use E on minions, monsters, or champions to target through walls as long as you have vision of the target. And if you use Q during E, Qiyana will automatically aim her Q toward the champion you dash to. This makes EQ one of the most reliable ways to land damage because your Q becomes much harder to dodge. Qiyana's ultimate can punish an entire team for standing in the wrong place. When you use R, Qiyana sends out a shockwave that knocks enemies back. If that shockwave hits a wall, river, or brush, it explodes through that area, stunning and damaging every enemy caught inside. This is why Qiyana is terrifying around jungle paths, river fights, and any tight area where enemies are forced near terrain. The important thing is that R can travel along connected terrain, so you don't always need to hit enemies directly. And because it provides vision, it can light up entire areas and reveal enemies hiding around the fight. For ability order, max Q first. This is your main damage spell, your wave clear, and the ability you're constantly resetting with W. Max W second because it increases those important passive stats while holding an element. Then max E last. E is still important for combos and chasing, but Q and W give you more value. And level your ultimate whenever you can. This is Qiyana's most important combo, but there are two versions you need to know. The fastest version is E straight into Q. If you press Q during the E dash, your Q will aim towards the target, making it one of your most reliable ways to land damage, start a quick trade, or finish someone before they can react. The damage version is E, auto, then Q. Use this when the enemy is stuck, immobile, or can't escape, because the auto gives you extra damage and helps proc electrocute. Just remember, once you delay the Q for an auto, it becomes less guaranteed, so don't get greedy when you need the damage instantly. This combo makes Qiyana feel like a ranged champion. Start with brush or river for your first Q. Throw it towards the enemy, then W to pick up the rock and throw your second Q. This gives you quick ranged burst without needing to dash in. Sometimes enemies stay far behind their minions, so you can use E on the minion to gap close, then double Q poke. Use it to poke in lane, chunk enemies before a fight, clear waves from safety, or finish low health targets without getting close. Q, W, Q. This is the combo you use when EQ is not enough. E onto the target, throw Q during the dash, then use W to pick up a new element and throw your second Q. This gives you 2 Qs, 2 chances to proc your passive damage, and much better burst than a basic EQ trade. If the enemy can't escape, add autos before your Qs for extra damage. But if they're mobile or low HP, skip the autos and get the damage out instantly. Starting brush Q leaves little time for enemies to respond. And most of the time, you want the final Q to be rock if they're below half HP. E, Q, W, Q. This is your main kill combo when you have ultimate. E onto the target, use R to knock them into terrain, then follow up with Q, W to pick up rock, and Q again. The ult gives you the lockdown, and the double Q gives you the damage to finish the kill. You can add an auto after R and W if you need extra damage. Use this combo to redirect enemies as well. even sweeping them backwards if you need. And since it's all AoE, use it on multiple enemies in teamfights. E, R, Q, W, Q. These are the 4 core combos you need. Lock them in first, and later we'll build on them with Qiyana's mechanics and outplay tricks. For runes, Electrocute is Qiyana's main page. It gives her the strongest burst and works best when the enemy team is mostly squishy. Take Sudden Impact, followed by Sixth Sense for detecting wards while roaming and looking for flanks. Grisly Mementos is also an option if you expect plenty of takedowns and want more trinket haste. Ultimate Hunter is the default because Qiyana's ultimate is important in every type of fight. If you're confident you can pick up early kills and snowball, take Treasure Hunter instead. For secondary runes, Presence of Mind and Last Stand give you better mana sustain and more damage during close all-ins. Against heavy poke, switch to Second Wind and Overgrowth for a safer lane. Conqueror is a second option when the enemy team is tankier or has sustain heavy champions who force longer fights. Qiyana can stack it quickly through her abilities and basic attacks, with her W attack speed helping during extended trades. Take Triumph, Legend Alacrity and Last Stand. For secondary page, take Sudden Impact and Treasure Hunter, and you usually want to take 1 attack speed shard. For starting items, take Doran's Blade and 1 health potion in most matchups. It gives Qiyana health, attack damage, and a small amount of sustain throughout the lane. Against extremely heavy poke, Doran's Shield is the safer option. Your standard core is Voltaic Cyclo Sword, Gluttonous Greaves, and Profane Hydra. If you're confident you can snowball, replace Voltaic with Hubris. Voltaic is the standard option for reliable upfront burst, while Hubris is the greedier choice when you're confident you can pick up kills and snowball. Profane Hydra gives Qiyana much better wave clear and adds extra damage to her combos. For boots, Gluttonous Greaves is highly recommended because the Omni Vamp gives Qiyana valuable sustain throughout the game. Ionian boots are the cheaper alternative, costing 100 gold less while giving you ability haste. These are the standard paths, not fixed rules. You can change the order or build all 3 items depending on the game. Mercury Treads are useful against heavy magic damage and crowd control, while Plated Steel Caps help against heavy physical damage and basic attacks. After your core items, build around the enemy team. Yumu's Ghostblade gives you movement speed for roaming and reaching priority targets. Serelda's Grudge gives you armor penetration against tankier targets. Serpent's Fang is best against heavy shielding. Axiom Arc gives you more frequent ultimates through takedowns. Edge of Night gives you a spell shield against abilities that could stop your engage. More of Malmortius helps against magic burst, while Death's Dance is better against heavy physical damage. Guardian Angel is a strong late game option when one death could decide the game. And Endless Hunger is a greedier sustain option for extended fights, especially when you're already ahead. For summoner spells, take Flash and Ignite. Flash is mandatory for closing gaps, extending combos, creating outplays, and escaping dangerous situations. Ignite gives Qiyana extra pressure in lane, reduces enemy healing, and helps her secure early kills. This is crucial for her playstyle because Qiyana wants to create an early lead and snowball into the rest of the game. Qiyana's main early game goal is to reach level 3 safely with as much health as possible. In most matchups, focus on picking up any farm you can without taking unnecessary harass. Use Q to secure minions from range when needed, especially cannon minions. Most enemies will naturally push towards your tower, often allowing you to hold the wave just outside it as you reach level 3. Once you unlock all 3 basic abilities, you can start looking for trades. Walk forward and see how the enemy reacts. If they throw out and miss important abilities, you can punish them with a hard trade or all-in. Brush Q is especially useful during these trades, allowing you to reposition and drop enemy minion aggro. You don't need to win the lane immediately. Getting through the first few levels with good health and solid farm is the most important part. At level 6, Qiyana's pressure increases dramatically. You can start looking for all-ins in lane, especially when the enemy positions near walls. Try to gain control of the river with a control ward, then punish enemies who walk into it without vision. Look for skirmishes with your jungler whenever possible. Qiyana excels in the river, jungle, and around objective pits, where the terrain makes her ultimate much easier to use. You can also use your bonus movement speed near the river to roam towards low health enemies, set up dives, or look for the enemy jungler. Just make sure you push away before leaving lane so you don't sacrifice too much farm and experience. If there are no kills or skirmishes available, keep farming and stay even in CS. Once Qiyana completes her first item, her kill threat rises dramatically. A clean combo can burst down almost any squishy champion, making the mid-game one of her strongest stages. Switch to Sweeper, buy control wards, and deny vision around the river and jungle. Use Fog of War to camp brushes and punish squishy champions who walk too far forward. One successful pick can immediately give your team control of Dragon, Rift Herald, or Baron. Fights around the river and jungle and objectives are ideal for Qiyana. Enemies are more likely to group together, making your ultimate easier to land. Brush Q creates constant mind games, and every element is readily available. Your passive attacks and Q can also help secure objectives, but hold your abilities if the enemy team is close enough to contest. Qiyana is also excellent at tower dives, especially when you are ahead. The tower counts as terrain for your ultimate, giving you another way to lock enemies down and snowball your lead. When side laning, focus on collecting the wave, pushing it out, then rotating to look for picks. Avoid staying too long against bruisers, as many top lane champions can still beat you one-on-one. If enemies collapse on you, use the nearby brushes, walls, jungle, and alcoves to outplay them or waste their time. Even if you can't kill them, stalling 2 or 3 enemies can give your team time to collapse and help you, or secure an objective elsewhere on the map. Qiyana has 3 main goals during teamfights. Your first priority is finding an angle to hit multiple enemies with your ultimate. Approach from the side, flank from behind, or use walls to attack from unexpected angles. If your team needs you to engage, use your ultimate to start the fight. Otherwise, wait for enemies to commit and use it as a follow-up after they group together. If a strong ultimate angle is not available, look for the highest priority squishy target. Consider who is fed, who has a shutdown, and whether you have enough damage to burst them. Sometimes simply holding a flank is enough to zone that carry away from the fight. If there's no safe escape, trading your life for a heavily fed carry can still be worthwhile. And if you can't commit to either play, use Brush Q to stall, avoid being targeted, and create constant danger around the enemy backline. If your team already has a fed carry, you can also save your ultimate to peel and punish anyone who dives onto them. During the late game, Qiyana still has enough damage to eliminate a squishy champion with one clean combo. However, enemy carries may now have Zhonya's Hourglass, Guardian Angel, or other defensive tools. Teams will also spend more time grouped together, making isolated picks harder to find. Qiyana is extremely vulnerable at this stage as well. Other champions have reached their full builds, so positioning mistakes can lead to an immediate death. Continue looking for fights around Dragon and Baron, where the surrounding terrain gives your ultimate its greatest impact. Even when you're behind, one placed ultimate can still win the entire fight. You can occasionally split push when enemies are committed elsewhere, as Qiyana can clear waves and destroy towers quickly. Fighting inside either base is also more limiting. Brush and River Q are no longer easily available, usually forcing you to rely on Rock Q. The wide open areas also make it harder to find strong angles for your ultimate. Whenever possible, look to force a fight or find a pick outside the bases, where you have access to more elements and terrain. Late game Qiyana gives very little room for error, but one clean pick or ultimate can still decide the game. Most champions see Rift changes as scenery. Qiyana sees new weapons. Ocean Rift is great for Qiyana because it adds more brush and water areas and more ways to play around vision. You now have access to River Q in areas you never had. Mountain Rift is also strong because extra walls give you more W paths and better ultimate angles. Infernal Rift is usually worse, and Hextech, Chemtech, and Cloud Rift doesn't change your elements, but the Hex Gates, Speed Zones, and Blast Cones can help you chase, rotate, and find picks. Your Qiyana combos look slow because you're missing these 3 animation cancels. First is Auto Q. Use Q as your auto lands to cut the rest of the animation and fire Q immediately. Auto E works the same way, letting you keep the auto damage while starting your dash sooner. Both can be added throughout your combos to deal more damage in less time. Finally, WE is more situational. If the element you need is behind or beside you, cast W, then instantly E towards your target. This cancels the W dash, letting you grab the element without moving backwards or losing distance. Master these 3 cancels and every Qiyana combo feels faster, smoother, and harder to react to. Most players think Qiyana has no safe way to check brushes, but she does. If you throw Q into fog, Qiyana doesn't have a clear sound or visual effect when she hits someone, but there is one small Q. If your Q only travels half range, it usually means it hits something. This isn't reliable enough to depend on every time, but it can give you information. Another method is using Brush Q. Throw brush Q towards the area, walk through the grass trail and enter the brush while invisible. Once you step into the real brush, you'll reveal what's inside without fully face checking like a normal champion. One pixel can ruin your entire Qiyana combo. In some areas, river, brush and terrain overlap so closely that a tiny mouse movement changes which element you grab. Mid lane is a common example. You can grab river even when there's no visible water. If you need specific elements, aim closer to the center of it. But don't tunnel on the perfect element. When chasing or escaping, the direction of your W is often more important. Sometimes grabbing anything and keeping up with the enemy is the correct play. If you're not using these wall dashes, you're wasting one of Qiyana's most broken strengths. Some of her most important jumps are around the dragon and baron pit, including walls that look too thick to cross. You can throw brush Q over the wall, then W across while staying invisible, giving you vision inside the entire pit before deciding whether to engage, steal, or escape. When chasing enemies, also try to grab an element during the jump. Some walls give you access to multiple elements, so choose the one you need without slowing down. And don't trust the W indicator too much. Qiyana can cross some walls even when it looks like the dash won't reach. Qiyana can auto you through a wall and change elements without even moving. While holding an element, W gives her extra auto range, letting her hit enemies across some thin walls as long as she has vision. And you don't always need to dash with W. Cast it close to yourself to grab an element almost in place, letting you reset Q without ruining your positioning. Using E carelessly near walls will cost you kills, but using it properly can make escape impossible. Because E always travels a fixed distance, using it too close to an enemy beside a thin wall can send you straight over and let them escape. Use that same interaction defensively by dashing through a nearby target to get away. If they might flash or dash over a wall, keep vision with a ward or ignite them first, then hold E and follow once they cross. And with the perfect timing, E can even follow certain enemies mid-dash. Most players don't realize EQ has two completely different targeting rules. Against champions, Qiyana automatically throws Q towards the target. But if you use Q on a minion or monster, Q follows your mouse instead. This matters for your double Q poke combo, where you can dash through a minion to get closer, then manually aim both Qs towards the enemy. The same applies when clearing waves or jungle camps, so don't expect Q to aim itself. Qiyana's E can reach escape routes that W can't. Use minions, monsters, or enemy champions to E across terrain, chase someone down, or create an escape route that W can't reach. But E is targeted, so you need vision first. Yes, control wards cost 75 gold and deal 0 damage, but that ward can reveal your E target, secure a kill, or save your life. Learn the most useful routes around the jungle, because one nearby target can completely change the play. Stop treating Qiyana's ultimate as only an engage tool. The knockback can peel enemies away, save a teammate, interrupt a channeled ability, or buy time for your team. And something to be careful about. Sometimes the knockback pushes enemies too far away for you to follow up. And R will never knock enemies through a wall, even really thin ones, so plan where they'll land before using it. Walls are supposed to stop champions. Qiyana turns them into weapons. Champion-made terrain, like Anivia's wall or Talia's ultimate, can activate your ultimate, and if it connects to the map, the shockwave can spread across the entire connected wall. Whether it comes from an ally or enemy, Qiyana can use it. Spell shields aren't always safe either. Against Sivir, for example, the initial knockback can consume her shield, but the terrain shockwave can still stun and damage her afterwards. And while R won't knock enemies through walls, someone standing on the other side of a thin wall can sometimes be pushed out of the stun area. If you want to trick enemies with brush Q, you need to understand what they can actually see. AoE still hits you, so keep dodging. Control wards, useless, they don't reveal you. Sweepers are different, they show a delayed outline, so keep moving. True Sight fully reveals you, so watch out for champions like Rengar and TF. And recalling breaks the invisibility, so don't try to sneak a free recall inside your brush Q. Brush Q is why Qiyana can trade without giving enemies a fair chance to fight back. It lets you deal damage, disappear, then retreat while enemies struggle to respond. Use it to dodge auto attacks, avoid point click abilities, drop minion aggro, or stall until your cooldowns return. Walls and nearby brushes make it even harder to predict where you went. And under tower, it can buy enough time to survive a dive. Be creative. For example, if an enemy pushes you on the tower, E brush auto WQ. You get to chunk them, dash back to safety, and they won't have any time to react. Brush Q can make Qiyana look like she vanished from the map. Throw it across a wall, then choose whether to W over or stay on the same side. Because W doesn't reveal you, enemies have to guess where you went. You can also connect Brush Q to a real brush and move around terrain without ever giving them vision. From their perspective, you simply disappear, giving you time to escape, reposition, or turn the fight. Double Brush Q can waste so much time that Qiyana feels impossible to catch. Use Brush Q, W a nearby brush, then Brush Q again to chain both trails and stay invisible while your other cooldowns return. For maximum duration, move towards the furthest edge of the trail, the last part to disappear. With enough haste later in the game, W comes back quickly enough to keep repeating this and waste even more of the enemy's time. These 3 flash tricks can turn Qiyana from dangerous to impossible to react to. With Q flash, you cast Q, then instantly flash to extend or redirect it. This is great when an enemy thinks they're outside your range, especially with Rock Q to finish them off. Then you have R flash. This is much more dangerous because you can start your ultimate, then flash to close the gap and change the angle before enemies can react. Use this for important kills, surprise engages, or game-winning teamfights. And finally, E flash. Most players flash then E, but using E first, then flashing is slightly faster. And you can use all these during your other combos. When you have no time and need every spell out immediately, use Qiyana's fastest full rotation. QERWQ auto. This works best when the target is directly in front of you. This isn't your most damage efficient combo, but it unloads everything almost instantly. Perfect when you're about to die, the target is about to escape, or speed matters more than perfect damage. It's fast, smooth, and one of Qiyana's cleanest looking combos. Sometimes damage isn't the priority, you just need someone to stop moving. You want to start this combo by picking up River Q. E, Q, R, W, then another River Q. The first River Q roots them, your ultimate knocks them back and stuns them, then the second River Q locks them down again. This is best when your team is ready to follow up and you want to keep an important target or multi-targets trapped for as long as possible. This combo turns Qiyana into a ranged assassin. Start with Ice Q to root them and make your ultimate much easier to land. Then use R, grab Rock with W, and finish with Rock Q. Because this gives you 3 hits, it also procs Electrocute. Q, R, W, Q. This combo might seem niche, but you'll get this chance a lot, especially when enemies are sitting under tower. Qiyana rewards creativity more than memorizing endless combos. Start while holding Brush Q. E auto, then Q. They can't target you, so move towards the edge of the trail towards your tower. Then W towards safety and Q from range. You deal a strong chunk of damage, finish closer to your tower, and give the enemy almost no chance to trade back. This is only one example. Qiyana's elements, movement, and positioning let you constantly create new combos for the situation. That's what makes her such a high mastery champion. Before we cover the matchup tiers, remember that matchups can be slightly subjective depending on your experience against each champion. Qiyana is extremely vulnerable during levels 1 and 2, so your first goal is usually to preserve your health and collect as much farm as possible. Once you reach level 3 and unlock all your 3 basic abilities, you gain much stronger trading and kill pressure. These ratings assume both players are equally skilled and focus on how easily the enemy's kit can pressure Qiyana, survive her burst, or stop her from engaging. Easy matchups are generally champions Qiyana can reliably pressure once she reaches level 3. They may be squishy, vulnerable when key abilities are unavailable, or simply struggle to stop Qiyana from reaching them. You still need to respect their early poke and avoid losing too much health during the first 2 levels, but once your full kit is available, you can begin taking stronger trades, threatening all-ins, and forcing them to play more carefully. If they refuse to interact and stay far back, use that control to push the wave and look for opportunities elsewhere. Medium matchups are more skill-based and usually come down to cooldowns and execution. These champions may have enough mobility, crowd control, durability, or damage to punish you if you engage carelessly. Instead of immediately forcing a combo, look to bait their most important defensive ability first. Use Brush Q to control trades, avoid extended fights you cannot win, and pay attention to when the enemy becomes vulnerable. One good trade can give you control over the lane, but one careless engage can place you behind just as quickly. Hard matchups give Qiyana very little room for error. These champions may outrange you, survive your burst, punish your dashes, sustain through your damage, or reliably stop you whenever you engage. Avoid repeated forcing trades when their kit naturally counters. Keep the waves closer to your tower when possible, preserve your health, and use your abilities to secure farm when walking forward would be dangerous. Your best opportunities usually come when they waste an important cooldown, overextend, or become vulnerable to a gank. If the lane gives you no realistic opening, focus on staying useful and finding better fights outside the lane. These tiers represent how naturally each champion's kit performs against Qiyana. They don't guarantee who wins. Qiyana has enough mobility, burst, and outplay potential to win almost any matchup, but harder lanes require much better patience and execution. And if you want more detailed help against individual champions, check out my complete mid lane matchup guide, where I break down how to lane against every major mid lane matchup. Qiyana jungle isn't about farming or game. You pick her for unpredictable ganks, strong river fights, and some of the best terrain control in the game. Most of this guide still applies, but your early focus changes. While clearing, keep an element active, weave in autos, and use W to reset Q and refresh your passive damage. Finish low health camps with Rock Q and kite towards your next camp or the lane you want to pressure. For ganks, approach through fog or over walls and start with River Q whenever possible. The route gives your teammates time to follow up and makes the rest of your combo much easier to land. You can also use camps and minions as E-targets to create chase and escape routes most junglers don't have. For runes, take First Strike instead of Electrocute or Conqueror. For items, you can follow the same builds covered earlier, with Umbral Glaive as one extra jungle item option, giving you cheap damage and vision denial before you start hunting for picks. Qiyana also makes great use of the Night Hunter passive with her Brush Q, proccing it multiple times in a fight. Qiyana jungle is best against squishy teams and lanes that can follow your crowd control. She struggles against more tanky teams and aggressive junglers that can invade her early. Qiyana is one of those champions you're not supposed to master straight away. Her elements, combos, movement, and ultimate angles all take time to feel natural. You'll grab the wrong element, miss opportunities, and mess up combos. That's normal. The more games you play, the more you'll understand your damage, choose the right element, and create plays around terrain. Eventually, Qiyana stops feeling complicated and starts feeling completely under your control. If this guide helped, consider subscribing for more champion guides like this. I'm Zeus, and I'll see you in the next one.